Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. And now that I think about it, I could have named it Zionism and the Illuminati and the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons and Luciferianism and Satanism and alchemy and Hermetics and so much more. It's all very interesting to find out this philosophy behind these people, behind the secret societies and the elites who control our reality, our world, and apparently are plotting and planning to bring about a global world order. Quite interesting. So I made part 1 on this book yesterday. February 9th. This is February 10th, 2019. So I thought I'd make part 2 today, the Jewish state, and kind of focusing on the cover of this book, the 6-pointed star, the 2 stripes, Theodor Herzl, 1896. He was an educated elitist, coming from a wealthy family with interesting credentials. And he decided that the world would never accept the Jewish people. They would never assimilate, and apparently anti-Semitism would never go away. So they needed a state of their own, a country to call home, and apparently it's in alignment with fulfilling certain prophecies because they do have a religion. So what does that religion have to do with the anti-Christian activity going on in the world today and the promotion of pansexualism, transgenderism, the New Age, and all this other stuff? And the UFO and alien propaganda, Ascension, Galactic Federation, and so much more. What is going on behind the scenes? What is reality? What should we know that maybe we don't know? So anyways, 1896, Theodor Herzl, a hero to the Zionist movement, and the creator of the plans to bring about the state of Israel. But back then in 1896, there was a huge problem. Turkey, right above the Middle East, controlled the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire. Apparently they had a leader called a Sultan, part of the Arab religion and the Arab people's way of life, controlled the Middle East and did not want the state of Israel to be created and all the Jews to move back there to create a homeland, because maybe they remembered the past and they know a little bit about what might happen. So what is happening, what has happened since 1896 to bring about the situation that exists today? Looks like we're just inches away from a global world order with all kinds of advanced technologies to create warfare against us, to monitor us, surveillance systems, and apparently affecting our health, toxins in foods and water, mercury in vaccines, and an excessive amount of radio transmissions, microwave transmissions, and so much more. Apparently the powers that be are controlling the weather with weather warfare and using directed energy weapon, HARP transmitters, smart meters, artificial intelligence to destroy the environment around us. So it seems. So what's it all about? So I made part 1. So let me read from this book to do part 2. Then we'll look at some pictures and other documents and try to put a picture together of what's really happening, who's behind it, and why. So apparently all over Europe there was something called the Jewish problem. And in the case of Hungary, this is page 10, the Hungarian liberals, who had just given legal sanction to mixed marriages, have made a remarkable mistake which one of the earliest cases clearly illustrates. A baptized Jew married a Jewish female person who was not baptized, not Christianized. So my question is, what makes a human person a Jew? Is it a race of people, a DNA thing? And this has been a question asked by a lot of people. Or is it a religious thing? Like you can have Italians and Frenchmen and people from Spain and Britain and even Chile or Mexico who are Christians because they believe Jesus Christ was the Savior sent by God. And in the Bible it says, whoever shall believe in me shall be saved. And of course, in my opinion, we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. So the real world is the spirit world, and for some reason we're on planet Earth. So to be a Christian means you believe that Jesus Christ was the Savior. So what does it mean to be Jewish? And what about the ancient kingdom of Khazaria, the Khazars up there by Russia and Poland and Germany, that converted to Judaism 1,000 years ago? They weren't Jewish DNA, Hebrews, Arabs, people from the Middle East, Semites. They were northern white people, I guess. So they converted to Judaism, and I guess they had to learn the Jewish religion. Okay, what is the Jewish religion? And if you get baptized and convert to Christianity, are you still Jewish and practice this Jewish religion with its beliefs and its rituals? A complicated question, and it's been asked by a lot of people, including Henry Ford, the automaker, and many other people. And apparently the Jewish people have denied categorically that they are a race of people or a religion of people. So then what is it that makes a person Jewish? If it isn't religion and if it isn't race? Seems like somebody's trying to evade the answer. And of course in Revelation in the Bible, it says 2.9 and 3.9, Jews who call themselves Jews but are of the synagogue of Satan. So wait a minute, if we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies, what is it to belong to the synagogue of Satan? And should we be asking these questions? Should we be taking these questions seriously? So anyways, back to the book. So apparently in Hungary, they had a problem because a baptized Jew, I guess a Jewish person who converted to Christianity, went for a license to marry a Jewish woman. At the same time, the struggle to obtain the present form of marriage accentuated distinctions between Jews and Christians, thus hindering rather than aiding the fusion of the races. Seems like a perplexing problem. Those who really wished to see the Jews disappear through intermixture with other nations, assimilation, to assimilate, can only hope to see it come about in one way. The Jews must previously acquire economic power sufficiently great to overcome the old social prejudice against them. So apparently to Theodor Herzl, they had to gain economic power, gain wealth to overcome the social prejudice against them. The aristocracy may serve as an example of this, for in its ranks occur a proportionally large number of mixed marriages. And if you've been doing any research at all and you know about the bloodlines of the Illuminati, the one book published by Fritz Springmeier, you know that these elite families in the Illuminati, they repeatedly intermarry to keep the wealth within the families. So there's nothing new about this. Even the elites, kings and queens and princesses and princes and dukes, the elites back then, apparently claiming some kind of divine right to be the royal families, they always intermarried also. Kind of, again, a perplexing situation. So what are we, the rest of the people that are not the royal elites or the Jewish people, what are we supposed to be? Are we supposed to be second-class citizens? Makes you wonder what's coming in our future. Anyways, Jewish families which regaled the old nobility with money became gradually absorbed. So apparently some of the wealthy Jewish families were intermarrying with the royal elites. But what form would this phenomenon assume in the middle classes, where the Jews being a Bourgeois people, you know, the high-level working class people? The Jewish question is mainly concentrated. A previous acquisition of power could be synonymous with that economic supremacy which Jews are already erroneously declared to possess. And I think Theodor Herzl is not being completely honest here, because through the past 2,000 years, many Jewish people were the financiers and magicians and physicians, and assumed a lot of positions of unique positions in life, higher levels than the common peasants. So he says here, a previous acquisition of power could be synonymous with that economic supremacy which Jews are already erroneously declared to possess. Well, they did hold a higher economic position, albeit in different kinds of trades and brokerages and banking, lending, and stuff like that, tax collectors. So a lot of the governments were using them, procurement of supplies and equipment for wars. So historically, that's what they were accused of, and apparently, accordingly, that's what they were actually involved in. They had set themselves out apart. And really, if I've been reading my material correctly, thought it was degrading for them to do what the lowly peasants did for labor, like farming and other things. So they felt that they were superior. And I recognize that in a lot of my reading. And even in this material, it repeatedly asserts that, suggests that. And if the power they now possess creates rage and indignation among the anti-Semites, what outbreaks would such an increase of power create? It's almost as if each sentence in this book needs to be slowly absorbed. I'll read on. Hence, the first step towards absorption will never be taken. So the first steps towards some kind of assimilation with the Jews and non-Jews will never be taken. Because this step would involve the subjection of the minority, subjection of the majority, to a hereto scorned minority, possessing neither military nor administrative power of its own. 1896. I can't believe that we don't discuss this. It's a matter of attitude. Whose attitude? In countries which are now anti-Semitic, my view will be approved. In others where Jews now feel comfortable, it will probably be violently disputed by them. So there are places where the Jews assimilated with everybody else. But apparently, it's not something the leaders of the Jews, or the Jewish Congress, or the Sanhedrin, or the Zionists, or the Illuminati, or the people into this historic religion want, apparently according to my reading, and I'll continue reading here, they want separation. My happier co-religionist will not believe me till Jew baiting teaches them the truth. Jew baiting. For the longer anti-Semitism lies in abeyance, the more fiercely it will break out. The more that anti-Semitism lies in abeyance, in other words, it doesn't exist, the more fiercely it will break out later. You know, I'm thinking the Middle East after 9/11. Those poor Arabs never had a chance. Before World War I and World War II, the poor Europeans, Germany, Austria, all those people, Prussians, never had a chance. Before they took over the USA money supply in 1913, after they did that, we never had a chance. Where does that take us today? And should we be talking about this? The infiltration of immigrating Jews attracted to a land by apparent security, and the ascent in the social scale of native Jews combined powerfully to bring about a revolution. And according to the Encyclopedia Judaica, revolutionary activities are part of the Jewish history. FYI. Nothing is plainer than this rational conclusion. Again, just each sentence is actually stunning. Because I have drawn this conclusion with complete indifference to everything but the quest of truth. Again, I think he's being disingenuous. But then again, I shall probably be contradicted and opposed by Jews who are in uneasy circumstances. So I guess somebody has to create uneasy circumstances to rile up the Jews to get them to support Zionism. The same thing they do in revolutions. They have to cause all kinds of protests and riots to get the citizens to rise up against the governments when they try to create these revolutions, whether it's gay pride parades, women marches, Black Lives Matter, white supremacist marches, etc., etc. Apparently, they're pretty smart at psychology, understanding the human brain activities and reaction to action, being reactionary. But I guess maybe, I hope not, but I guess maybe we non-Jews, we citizens of the planet, just aren't intelligent enough to pay attention to this stuff. I would hope we are. Insofar as private interests alone are held by their anxious or timid possessors to be in danger, they can safely be ignored, for the concerns of the poor and oppressed are of greater importance than theirs. So he's kind of scorning the wealthy Jews for not continuing to be as aggressive towards Zionism and a separate Jewish world and state, because apparently they have money and they're comfortable. But there are some people behind the scenes with this mystery religion, this ancient religion, and it says it in here, that do not want this to happen, do not want them to assimilate with the rest of us. So it isn't us that don't want this. All along for 2,000 years, we the people all over the world have, and many of the books, including the Encyclopedia Judaica, the people were welcoming the Jews into their countries after they were having so much turmoil in another country. And why is that? Because it's human nature to try to help other people. But even in this book here and other books I've read, after they're in a country for a while, as I've been reading here, anti-Semitism raises its ugly head. Why should we be asking this? Henry Ford, the automaker, asked these questions. Many people ask these questions. Look up Benjamin Friedman in his famous speech. He was telling us, Rabbi Marvin Entelman, the book reviews I've gone over, To Eliminate the Opaque. Series 45, several videos. He was the leading rabbi for the American Jewish Congress. He told all. But I wish from the onset to prevent any misconception from arising, particularly the mistaken notion that my project, if realized, would in the least degree injure property now held by Jews. So he's trying to assure the Jews, the wealthy ones, the property holding ones, the ones that are comfortable, that if they go along with his plans, it says here, particularly the mistaken notion that my project, if realized, would in the least degree injure property now held by Jews. I shall therefore explain everything connected with rights of property very fully. Whereas if my plan never becomes anything more than a piece of literature, things will merely remain as they are. It might more reasonably be objected that I am giving a handle to anti-Semitism when I say we are a people, one people, he's talking about the Jews, that I am hindering the assimilation of Jews where it is about to be. So there are people saying that he's trying to disrupt the places where the Jews assimilated into societies all over the world. 1896. Apparently, attitudes have not changed one iota. This objection will be especially brought forward in France. It will probably also be made in other countries, but I shall answer only the French Jews beforehand, because they afford the most striking example of my point. However much I may worship personality, powerful individual personality in statesmen, inventors, artists, philosophers, or leaders. Better read that again. However much I may worship personality, powerful, individual personality in statesmen. He worships this? Inventors, artists, philosophers, or leaders? He worships these individuals, inventors, statesmen, artists, philosophers, and leaders. Who worships people? As well as the collective personality of a historic group of human beings, which we call a nation. However much I may worship personality, I do not regret its disappearance. Whoever can, will, and must perish, let him perish. But the distinctive nationality of Jews never can, will, nor must be destroyed. The distinctive nationality of Jews neither can perish, nor must be destroyed. It cannot be destroyed, because external enemies consolidate. External enemies consolidate. It will not be destroyed. This is shown during 2,000 years of appalling suffering. So all these things I've been saying, I've been correct all along. The obvious. It says in this book by Theodor Herzl, one of the heroes of Zionism and the Jewish state today. Look in the Encyclopedia Judaica. I've gone over the material. And the six-pointed star and the two red stripes, what does that mean? It must not be destroyed. and that as a descendant of numberless Jews who refused to despair, I am trying once more to prove in this pamphlet, whole branches of Judaism may wither and fall, but the trunk will remain. Hence, if all or any of the French Jews protest against this scheme on account of their own assimilation, my answer is simple. The whole thing does not concern them all. They are Jewish Frenchmen. Well and good. This is a private affair for the Jews alone. The movement towards the organization of the state I am proposing, of course, harm Jewish Frenchmen no more than it would harm the assimilated of other countries. It would, on the contrary, be distinctly to their advantage, for they would no longer be disturbed in their chromatic function, as Darwin puts it, but would be able to assimilate in peace, because the present anti-Semitism would have been stopped forever. And I'm thinking about this global world order and this anti-Christian propaganda, social conditioning going on in February 2019 in the last few years. Because the present anti-Semitism would have been stopped forever. There is social conditioning going on. There has been a battle for 2,000 years, and it's in this book here, out of Theodor Herzl's words in 1896. So does anybody believe that World War I and World War II were avoidable? With these forces controlling high positions of power, advisors to government kings and presidents and prime ministers, controlling the banking systems, they had a plan. They would certainly be credited with being assimilated to the very depths of their souls if they stayed where they were after the new Jewish state. Page 12 in this book. After the new Jewish state. 1896. So how many years before they started World War I? 1914. 6 months after they took over the USA money supply in 1913, December 21. Started World War I in June 1914. So 96, 4 years, and add 12 more. 16 years after he wrote this, they started World War I. And why did they have World War I? Because Turkey was in control of the Middle East with the Ottoman Empire. Why did they have World War II? Because they didn't accomplish what they were supposed to accomplish in World War I. Why will they have World War III? Apparently to finish off the job. With all the advanced technological systems in place, artificial intelligence, monitoring all of us, weaponized microwaves, destroying our environment, weakening everything, killing fish, plants, bugs, bees, everything. There appears to be a plan in place. There's a comment section below. Tell me where I'm wrong. If they stayed where they were after the new Jewish state, with its superior institutions had become a reality, the assimilated would profit even more than the Christian citizens by the departure of faithful Jews. So back in 1896, they were planning on the departure of faithful Jews from all the countries, all over the world, a program called Aliyah. I've showed pictures on that. We'll look at that again. For they would be rid of the disquieting, incalculable, and unavoidable rivalry of a Jewish proletariat, driven by poverty and political pressure from place to place and from land to land. This floating proletariat would become stationary, so the working class people. Many Christian citizens whom we call anti-Semites, many Christian citizens who we call anti-Semites, I underlined it there on the bottom. 1896. Did we have a chance back then to avoid this? Do we have a chance to avoid it now? He admits further up on this book here, it's been going on for 2,000 years. This is serious business. Plenty of information out there that these people are in control of the world, and advanced technological imprisonment and warfare systems are now in place. Now offer determined resistance to the immigration of foreign Jews. Jewish citizens cannot do this, although it affects them far more directly, for on them they feel first of all the keen competition of individuals carrying on similar branches of industry, who in addition either introduced anti-Semitism where it does not exist, or intensifies where it does. The assimilated give expression to this secret grievance in philanthropic and undertakings. They organize immigration societies for wandering Jews. There is a reverse to the picture, which would be comic if it did not deal with human beings. For some of these charitable institutions are created not for, but against persecuted Jews. They are created to dispatch these poor creatures just as fast and as far as possible. And thus many an apparent friend of the Jews turns out, on careful inspection, to be nothing more than an anti-Semite of Jewish origin, disguised as a philanthropist. But the attempt at colonization may even be really benevolent men, interesting attempts though they were, have so far been unsuccessful. I do not think on this or that man took up the matter merely as an amusement, but that they engaged in the immigration of poor Jews as one indulges in the racing of horses. So he's comparing the immigration of poor Jews as the same thing as one indulges in the racing of horses. These attempts were interesting in that they represented on a small scale the practical forerunners of the idea of a Jewish state. They were even useful, for out of their mistakes may be gathered experience for carrying the idea out successfully on a larger scale. They have, of course, done harm also. The transportation of the anti-Semitism to new districts, which is the inevitable consequence of such artificial infiltration, seems to me to be the least of these evils. Far worse is the circumstance that unsatisfactory results tend to cast doubts on intelligent men. What is the impractical or impossible to simple argument will remove this doubt from the minds of the intelligent man. What is unpractical or impossible to accomplish on a small scale may not necessarily be so on a larger one. A small enterprise, next page here, may result in loss under the same conditions which would make a larger one pay. A rivulet cannot be navigated by boats. The river into which it flows carries stately iron vessels. So he's saying the small streams may not be able to support boats, but the big river in which it flows can carry stately vessels. So individually they can't get enough done, but united they are much more powerful. And apparently they've been working at this for a couple hundred years, and more particularly that in current events that people can relate to, French Revolution just before 1900, World War II, then the Russian Revolution, or I should say invasion after World War I, World War I, then the Russian Revolution or invasion, then many other countries destroyed. World War II, many other countries destroyed since then the Iron Curtain of Russia, which the Bolshevik Jewish people controlled, and then, of course, 9/11 and so much more. Admittingly, anybody who wants to be honest with themselves, these people have been busy. They are in control. They control the money. They have a plan, and it's in this book. Since 1896, and actually a couple hundred years before that, the Zionist Worldwide Congress was having meetings in Britain, in Germany, in America, all over. This Congress, these people without a country, were plotting and planning and infiltrating governments and banking systems and everything, controlling the media and business and natural resources with secret societies, gold mines, diamond mines in South Africa, controlling portions of land in China, India, secret societies. I've been going over books on these topics. So if anybody ever wants to think this is just going to go away, they better think again. It's real. No human being is wealthy or powerful enough to transplant a nation from one habitation to another. An idea alone can achieve that, and this idea of a state may have the requisite power to do so. The Jews have dreamt this kingly dream all through the long nights of their history. Next year in Jerusalem is the old phrase. I'll read it again. The Jews have dreamt this kingly dream all through the long nights of their history. Next year in Jerusalem is the old phrase. It is now a question of showing that the dream can be converted into a living reality. Think about these words. What does the six-pointed star mean? I think I'll look at some pictures. We'll get back to the book. So apparently I went over this material. But the six-pointed star is another version of the Merkabah. It has a lot of mystical symbolism and maybe actual purposes, magic like voodoo or shamanism. The Merkabah, and I've been going over this material. All right, so I went on Yahoo image site. Been watching my videos. I look up pictures on Yahoo image site, and apparently they tell us a lot. So the six-pointed star. And remember, the six-pointed star was a symbol on King Solomon's ring that he had on his hand. And it was magical and gave him the ability to communicate and control demons. The Merkabah. So you see the little object by the skull? Apparently intertwined pyramids, some kind of geometry, or Merkabah. So it's also, if you were to look at this in just two dimensions, some of these inverted intermixed triangles, you see the six-pointed star. And as this picture goes, I didn't hand pick these out. I just went on Yahoo image site and put in Merkabah. And you can see it shows Jewish mysticism. What do people believe mysticism is? Is mysticism the same thing as magicians? Is that the same thing as sorcery? Is that the same thing as witchcraft? Alchemy? Hermetic teachings? The big thick books like Morals and Dogma? The Freemasons? The Rosicrucian teachings? Theophist Society, Helena Blavatsky, Alice Beatty, all these fundamental teachings for the New Age. Jewish mysticism. This is on the Israeli flag. Does anybody have any doubt? Now think about this. The social conditioning. A lot of people believe, maybe not you watching this video, but talk to other people. People don't go to church very much anymore. A lot of people will mock you and laugh at you and say Jesus Christ has been discredited. He never existed. Somebody here, maybe the Vatican, made it up to control people. They have all these catch lines and slogans for intentional purposes. They used them during revolutions, World War I, World War II, catch phrases and slogans. And people believe them. So they want to destroy Christianity. They want to say Jesus wasn't real. It's all a myth, hocus pocus. But what do they believe? Why do they want to rebuild King Solomon's temple? Why did King Solomon have a ring on his finger with a six-pointed star that he could call forth demons and can control him? And apparently that's where he got his power. These are all facts that are in the Bible. Facts that are acknowledged everywhere. Facts you can go look up. So this was under the Merkabah. So apparently on Yahoo image site, looking up the Merkabah, there's this picture with these spiritual entities serenading apparently some guy in prison. And if you click the picture on Yahoo image site, Merkabah, you can get the story to this. So if you don't want to believe in spiritual beings, that you are a spiritual being, or that Jesus might have been real, do you want to believe in their religion? Merkabah. The Merkabah is the throne and the chariot of God. Merkabah. Divine throne chariot. That looks like a chair there with the wings on both sides and human skulls. Look at this picture carefully. Look at the Merkabah below the chair. I know it takes a while to focus and see it's a chair. A part of the vessel reserved for the use of the god. It's hard to read this writing. But look at the picture. Look at the Sephiroth, the tree of life, the head, the sun's rays, the moon, the five-pointed star in the seat, the Merkabah below. That's quite a spooky picture. I try to read this. The chariot of God, a sort of vessel reserved for the use of the, I can't make out the words. The latter sits on the entity and is no more than a vehicle in the hands of the pilot. So some kind of device, or the throne or chariot of God. Oh my. The Merkabah in an amulet with writings all around it. Invocations calling forth beings from another dimension. And according to the Bringers of the Dawn, the channeler, Barbara Marciniak, a couple of her books I made videos on, she holds a Merkabah in her hand while she goes into a trance and communicates with the Palladians, the spiritual beings, the elves, and the fairies. Quite popular lady into the New Age material. King Solomon and his magic ring with the six-pointed star calling forth demons. Here's an amulet with a Merkabah and writings on it, probably magical words. If spoken, can invoke these beings, like Stephen Greer of the Serious Disclosure. I get emails from him inviting me to events in parks and beaches with groups of people to do these invocations and incantations, mantras, to call forth beings which apparently, according to his emails and material, exist. He's the guy that's responsible for the serious disclosure, all those interviews with people who have seen UFOs and aliens involved in government programs, trying to expose everything, also using incantations and evocations and mantras to bring the beings into our dimension. So people don't want to believe in God or Jesus. The six-pointed star on the Israeli flag, the Jewish state. The people who are apparently trying to bring about a global world order, sending letters to the Jewish government, the American Congress and House of Representatives and the president to try to get them to enforce the secretly passed Noahide laws and help rebuild King Solomon's temple. Six-pointed star, here you go, as above, so below. Look at the image here. Look at the serpent eating its tail. If you want to ask yourself a question, is this a benevolent picture or a malevolent picture? Is this good or bad? The serpent eating its tail. Looks like a little pyramid on the bottom. Kinds of writings around there, other kinds of symbols. So I went on Yahoo image search. I found these pictures when I looked up Merkaba. So you have the different apparent spheres, and lowly from the underworld to the earth up to the divine head. The six-pointed star, earth in the middle there, you notice, so it looks like, with all that other crazy stuff around it. Six-pointed star. I get backwards on my... So you think it's the same six-pointed star? Here's a nice little Merkaba you can hang outside your window. Is there something we should know? Six-pointed star, Merkaba. What is this symbolism? And again, the way I believe is my ability to understand this, my ability to try to comprehend it, is to just take my time. Just look at the pictures. Six-pointed star, the circles, magic, mysticism, Kabbalah, alchemy, Hermetic teachings, New Age, sorcery, witchcraft, Freemasonry, Illuminati, Satanism, obviously all anti-Christian. So I'll go on this website, Yahoo image site, put in Merkaba, click this picture, tells you all the details. Apparently here it involves astrology and Merkaba alignment. And they tell us a lot on the videos in the news about the blood moons and the planetary alignments and the potential for a pole shift or earthquakes and all this stuff. So it's intertwined. Says Merkaba, that's clearly astrology. Merkaba alignment. Would that be part of magic? This was on the website. So apparently we looked at that other picture that was supposed to be the chariot of their god, that crazy looking device. And here's an ancient picture over there in Egypt area with this kingly thing on some kind of flying thing, possibly a Merkaba. And I'm learning as I go too here. Jewish Gnosticism, Merkaba, mysticism, Talmudic tradition, And you can go get these books and read this material. Watch my videos. I get these books. I go over this material. Been doing it since 2005, doing my research, making videos since 2013. You'd have to be brain dead not to be able to read the top of this book and connect the dots. Jewish, Gnosticism, Merkabah, mysticism, sorcery, witchcraft, Talmudic tradition. The 7 palaces. So now they're showing that these spheres are palaces. Do we understand what the word palace means? And there's 6 points around the circle and 1 in the middle. Palaces, spheres, other dimensions. The Merkabah field around the human body. The pyramid inverted, the 6-pointed star you can see on the picture. The wings of the being, all these mystical pictures we see, all of this standing on the earth. The Merkabah field. When the eyes of the heart are opened, the creation is revealed as it really is, the body of the divine light. The body of the divine light. Lucifer's known as the light bearer. Lucifer Publishing Company later became Lucas Publishing Company, promoting all that and publishing all of the Theophist Society books based foundation of the New Age movement. Looks like you got this godly type of character riding on this beast with several heads. Six-pointed star. Some kind of energy, spiritual essence, beings, what? This is under the topic Merkabah on the Yahoo image site. And obviously there's some kind of God in the sky handing down some kind of book to this man sitting there with this Merkabah wheel by my finger. Some kind of interdimensional portal or a chariot with this strange looking beast. So why is this lady sitting in a Merkabah, like the chakra systems, meditating? What is going on under the Yahoo image site looking up Merkabah with these pictures that you can look up and read about it? But you might not want to buy into it. But apparently, you've seen these kinds of cartoons for the children. So what do you think they're saying to the children? What are they teaching the children? Look at the breast on the lady with the weird stuff coming out of her head. Kind of a sexual reference there. And the little girl, we've seen all these, and the little girl has some kind of stick in her hand with a string and a star-like device. Oh my, what do you suppose that is? YourHolyLandStore.com. So President Donald Trump has said that the United States recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The Sanhedrin, the leaders of the religious body in Israel, have asked President Trump and President Putin to help rebuild King Solomon's temple. And you got your Merkabah 6-pointed star you can buy at the Holy Land store. It's kind of difficult for people to not recognize that all of these things are connected. There is a spiritual component to this. What kind of magic or sorcery do you think this is? Where have you seen those cross symbols before? It's not a regular cross. It's more like a Knights of Malta, one of those symbols that the Queen of England even wears. So what is this? Philosophic, Rosicrucian, Sophia, all the words, occult nature. I'm reading the words on this card. Occult divineness. Occult divineness. Look at the naked women with the breast and the sun for a head. Baby in the womb. This is the new religion of the future, I believe. See if I can read it. I've gone deep down into the underground to reclaim my soul. Being my vulnerable and authentic expression is my goal. I use my fiery passion to cleanse and purify thy self-doubt. Burning through my ignorance is what I'm all about. Layers upon layers, stripped and peeled, of my old self dies. I feel reborn like a phoenix. Out of the ashes I rise. I am a new generation. Feminine leader, Tiana Peluso. Oh my. You can look this up. I've gone deep down into the underground to redeem my soul. Being my vulnerable and authentic expression is my goal. I use my fiery passion to cleanse and purify my self-doubt. Burning through my ignorance is what I'm about. Layers upon layers, stripped and peeled off my old self dies. I feel reborn like a phoenix. Out of the ashes I rise. I am a new generation, feminine leader. Does that sound kind of familiar? The New Age, feminism, even Eurovision, like the American Idol program, where the winner was, in 2014, Conchita Wurst, with the face like Jesus and the body like a woman in a silky dress, singing the song, The Phoenix Rising, which has in the song the words, "You can't stop us." The greater treatise concerning the palaces of heaven. I think I am starting to learn what these spheres mean, these different palaces in another dimension. Translated from the Hebrew and Aramaic by Morton Smith. So apparently you can go buy these little amulets, these Merkabahs, and now you know a little bit more about them. Ezekiel's perspective. Wheel in the middle of the wheel. Direction of movement. Touching wings. Says here, man's face, ox's face, eagle face, lion face. Well, that's that multi-headed being. Says on those four circles, man's face, ox's face, eagle face, lion face. I've showed that. I'm sure we'll be looking at it again. Stay sacred. Stay sacred. Six-pointed star. You get it? Got it? Back to the book. I think the last sentence I read was this. It is now a question of showing that the dream can be converted into a reality. You've seen the pictures. For this, many old, outgrown, confused, and limited notions must first be entirely erased from the minds of men. So they do want to destroy Christianity, and you've seen by the pictures what they want to bring, what they are promoting. Dull brains might, for instance, imagine that this exodus would be from civilized regions into the desert. They're talking about moving all the Jews back in 1896 from all over the world into Jerusalem area. This is not the case, that they're just going into the desert. It will be carried out in the midst of civilization. We shall not revert to a lower stage. We shall rise to a higher one. We shall not dwell in mud huts. We shall build new, more beautiful, and more modern houses and possess them in safety. Well, the poor Palestinians are being exterminated along with all the other Arabs and all the other countries all around that area. And a lot of craziness going on in all the countries all over the world. We shall not lose our acquired possessions. We shall realize them. We shall surrender our well-earned rights only for better ones. We shall not sacrifice our loved customs. We shall find them again. Well, that seems to be an appropriate place to continue looking at the pictures. Mystical prayer in ancient Jerusalem, the analysis of Messiah Merkava, Text Zoom, I can't say those words. Well, anyways, you see the idea of the book there. So what is this religion? What is this mysticism? It says dimension there, I guess, on the bottom right, opposite my fingers. Aspect dimensional. Interdimensional. Portion for standing female relative to star tetradon energy field. Portion of female in meditation position relative to this one. Portion of standing male relative. Portion of male in meditation position. So I guess they have these different positions you get in while you meditate with the Merkaba to go to these other dimensions. Well, what do you believe in? UFOs and aliens, Galactic Federation, or this stuff? Look at the different heads on that guy with the cow and the lion and the eagle and the flames and the two columns in the back with that big being back there. Look at that being in the back. Oh my. Did you want to learn about the Jewish religion, the Kabbalah, alchemy, Hermetic teachings, Rosicrucian, morals and dogma, Freemasonry, secret societies, Illuminati, this global world religion coming to a place near you after they bring about the worldwide revolution, maybe World War III, maybe some depopulation event, so it seems. The Gnostic imagination, Gnosticism, Mandaeism, Merkabah mysticism, God's chariot there. Like I said, I'm learning a little bit at a time here. This is something I wasn't raised on, so it takes me a while to figure it out. Jewish Gnosticism, Merkabah mysticism, and I'm aware what mysticism is. That would be witchcraft, wouldn't it? Sorcery, Kabbalah. That's what they've been accused of throughout the ages. That's why they had problems in all the countries all over the world for 2,000 years. Because of their Kabbalah, Merkabah mysticism they were practicing in the rituals. And according to Jeremiah, they were sacrificing men and women to death, I guess. Throwing them in the fires. Bohemian Grove, they throw a baby into a fire. A lot of accusations of pedophilia, child sacrifice, Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley. So much stuff I've been going over. Is it all possibly true? Beholders of divine secrets, mysticism and myth, and the Halakot and Merkabah literature, the six-pointed star. Guess we'll get back to the book. Every time it mentions their loved customs, I like to show some pictures. We shall not leave our old houses before the new one is prepared for us. Those only will depart who are sure thereby to improve their position. Those who are now desperate will go first after them, the poor, next the prosperous, and last of all the wealthy. So these people who have taken controlling positions of power in industry all over the world had plans to do that, financed by elites, the people who took over the USA money supply, and the German money supply, and the Britain money supply, and the French money supply, and all the other countries all over the world with the world banks. They had a plan. And then, after World War II, when they really started the Aliyah project of moving all these people from all over the world back to the Jerusalem area, part of a fulfillment of prophecy, we experienced a lot of job losses in America, and they were sending a lot of their manufacturing industries to China and India. We all saw that. So did you know why it was really happening? So we have been, our economics and our governments with the political elected leaders under their control, they have the money, they control the bank. And apparently giving billions and billions every year to Israel. And do you know where that money comes from? When the United States of America gives billions of dollars to the national defense for the Cold War, which really wasn't a real threat, and to all these other major corporations and aerospace companies, and now security companies, surveillance companies, the police state, and to Israel, and etc., etc. Where did they get the money from? The United States government. They borrow it from the Federal Reserve, which these people control. We, the people, are responsible for that debt. It's almost insane when you think about it. Imagine if you just gave somebody your checkbook and said, hey man, go have a party. Travel all around the world, buy all the best booze and wine and food and whatever you want. Here's my checkbook. How long before you'd be broke? Probably less than a couple days. If you're like most Americans living paycheck to paycheck, which is all intentional. They've destroyed our economy 8 or 9 times since they took over the Federal Reserve in 1913. Those who go in advance will raise themselves to a higher grade, equal to those whose representatives will shortly follow. Thus the exodus will be at the same time an ascent of the class. So Israel will rise like the phoenix. After they destroy the rest of the world, a new world will rise. That's the story of the phoenix. The old world has to be burnt to ashes, destroyed, for the new phoenix to rise. Entering a new age, the age of Aquarius. These people are into astrology, as you've seen, and the Merkaba, and mysticism, sorcery, and witchcraft. It is a religion, and it is an anti-Christian religion. The departure of the Jews will involve no economic disturbances. That's what it says here. How many people believe that? No crises, no persecutions. In fact, the countries they abandon will revive a new period of prosperity. Yeah, well, we've seen 9/11 and so much more. Do you see a lot of prosperity going on in the United States? With the threat of economic collapse at any moment, even all kinds of social conditioning and propaganda in the news about an EMP, electricity going out for 6 months at a time. Do you realize that's going to be, if they pull it off, a huge mass killing, intentional mass murder, also called population reduction? There will be an intermigration of Christian citizens into the positions evacuated by Jews. That's what it says here. 1896. All this was planned. Does anybody doubt it? 1896. You can go find this book. The outgoing current will be gradual without any disturbances. And its initial movement will put an end to anti-Semitism. So, by the way, if you haven't been paying attention, in the news everywhere, even here in America, just go to the local, this is published a week ago, anti-Semite speaker, there's the date. So all over Europe and the world, they're saying a new breed of anti-Semitism is on the rise. You think, with all that's going on? Apparently, they get a little disturbed when people like me, or probably you watching this video, when we can observe what's going on, see that they're killing all the Arabs, seeing that they're planning on a greater Israel, seeing that they're behind the pursuit of a global world order. They're bringing about all this propaganda, threats of terrorism, sustainability, climate change, global warming, global cooling, a pole shift, and all this other fear-mongering. They're doing it, but if we notice it, we're the anti-Semites. If we know who's behind all this, who controls the banking systems, the stock markets, they get upset if we act even the slightest bit intelligent and aware. The Jews who will leave as honored friends, and if some of them return, they will receive the same favorable welcome and treatment at the hands of civilized nations as is accorded to all foreign visitors. Their exodus will have no resemblance to the flight, but it will be a well-regulated movement under control of public opinion. So they will be well regarded because we will all be under control of public opinion. This is Theodor Herzl, 1896, before World War I, World War II, which happened because they had to destroy Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, to rebuild this ancient kingdom of Judea. Planning for 300 years or longer. It says in this book, they've been longing for this for 2,000 years. That's the only thing they dream of. Under control of public opinion. They control the media. Look where my finger is. 1896, Theodor Herzl, the hero of the newly created State of Israel in 1946 after World War II. They tried to do it after World War I with the Balfour Agreement, controlling the political leaders in Britain, bringing us World War I between Britain and Germany. Under control of public opinion. This is their writing from their books, their plans, not mine. This can't be disputed. The movement will not only be inaugurated with absolute conformity to law. Of course, they control the courts and the system, Supreme Courts, presidents, House of Representatives, legislators. They make the laws. I got that one book I just showed yesterday. You can't avoid breaking 3 felonies a day. The system is rigged. Then, of course, I have all these advanced technologies where they can pretty much control the minds of men and women. Pretty scary stuff if you think about it. The movement will not only be inaugurated with absolute conformity to law, but it cannot be carried out without a friendly cooperation of interested governments who will derive considerable benefits from it. So the corporations, look where my finger is, and the governments will get considerable benefits from cooperating with this whole thing while they're under control of public opinion. Security for the integrity of the idea and the vigor of its execution will be found in the creation of a body corporate or corporation. So they're using all these corporations, which a lot of people are aware now. The huge corporations, it's like almost a secret government that doesn't have any kind of responsibility for its actions. And they can't be sued or destroyed because they supply the money for the governments and the money they give to the politicians. The people have been alienated from the government and are controlled by the corporations, all of which these people control. And the logos for the corporations are all occultic and satanic if you know how to interpret them. A lot of 666 in all these logos. This corporation will be called the Society of Jews. In addition to it, there will be a Jewish company, an economically productive body. So I think there were some scientific studies even done over there by the University of Switzerland, where they showed it was like a huge spider web thing, but there are a couple main corporations that own a lot of other corporations that own a lot of other corporations, and it just filters down. And all these corporations get all their contracts from the governments, like the United States, where they're trying to have all of our facilities or services outsourced by these corporations. Again, nobody held responsible, and thus avoiding the constitutional government. An individual who attempted even to undertake this huge task alone would be either an imposter or a madman. So this thing has to be done by this big matrix of a corporation. The personal character of the members of the corporation will guarantee its integrity, and the adequate capital of the company will prove its stability. And of course, we all remember 9/11. So there's more to that story. I'll make it brief. But years ago, they had the first bombing in the lobby of one of the Twin Towers. Did you know that? Okay, whenever you have a fire or a bombing, you have to have an insurance company and inspect and approve the building so you can reissue insurance. If you have a fire in your house or your business or even your car. Just the way it is. So when they did inspect the Twin Towers after that inspection, the insurance company hires engineers to do the inspection. They found out that those Twin Towers were deteriorating and had all kinds of other problems, apparently laced with asbestos. So they couldn't get insurance. And they were apparently faulty construction inside, and they were inevitably going to collapse on their own. Did you know that? So for many years, the buildings went without an insurance. And prior to 9/11, they were released for 100 years by Larry Silverstein, whatever his name was. And he didn't get building insurance. He got terrorism insurance, which you don't have to have a building inspection for terrorism insurance. So he was able to collect the billions. Because the buildings were deteriorating, faulty architectural design and construction maybe, insurance doesn't cover that. The buildings would have had to have been taken down with scaffolding from the top to the bottom, which apparently, according to my research, would have cost $2 billion for each building. And these individuals, part of these elite Illuminati Zionist bankster types, own those buildings. Of course, they didn't want to pay $4 to $6, $8 billion to have them dismantled at their expenses. So they came up with this scheme to have them collapsed, collected the insurance money because of terrorism, and they're rebuilding seemingly new types of buildings already on the site that seem to have certain occult significance to them also. And then, of course, the insurance companies that paid off, like AIG, etc., after the 9/11 event, after ciphering off billions of those corporation assets, the insurance companies, they had to have a bailout from the U.S. taxpayers. And when they bailed out the banks, again, the government borrowed from their Federal Reserve that they control, the same elite people, which the United States people had to pay back. Did you know that? When the government gives away money, they have to borrow it from them to fight their program for a global world order. So insane. Am I making myself clear? They control the banking system. When the government spends money, they borrow it from them. They're in control of the politicians and making the government fight all the wars all over the world to bring us about a global world order. We're paying for it. The billions and trillions, maybe even a gazillion. The money that's been sucked out of this country, robbed from all of us, crashing the economic system 8 times, maybe 9, since 1913. Now think about this for a minute. Between World War I and World War II, there was a worldwide depression. I've read some books on that. The problem was lack of money. These banking systems that didn't get the Palestinians land after World War I withdrew money from all the countries all over the world, creating a Great Depression. They needed World War II to destroy Turkey and the Ottoman Empire to finally get the Palestinians land. It's all connected. To the Merkabah, these pictures, a 6-pointed star. Secret societies, occult bankers, etc. Something I wrote here, reading this. These prefatory remarks are merely intended to hastily reply to the massive objections which the very words Jewish state are certain to arouse. Henceforth, we shall proceed more slowly to meet further objections and to explain in detail what has been as yet only indicated. And we shall try in the interest of this pamphlet to avoid making it a dull exposition. Short chapters will therefore best answer the purpose. So I only have a little bit more to read on this last page before the next chapter, so I'll just continue reading. If we wish to substitute a new building for an old one, I must demolish before I construct. I shall therefore keep to this natural sequence. In the first and general part, I shall explain my ideas, remove all prejudices, determine essential political and economic conditions, and develop the plan. It's in this book. You can go get it. Used books online or maybe PDF, new books. I don't know if you can. But apparently these people just don't think that we citizens out there will take the time and go research this stuff. What is this coming global world order, global world currency, global world religion? Why is it in alignment with the biblical prophecies? And what are their plans? What have they done so far? Obviously not a benevolent movement by any stretch of the imagination. Seems kind of sinister. And the weaponized systems are being put in place and slowly destroying our environment every day, dumping chemicals in the sky, toxins in our bodies, people getting sicker, microwave transmitters, smart meters, ecosystems, Google systems, Siri, whatever that name is. Devices that listen to us, talk to our children, cartoons that are kind of sinister, the things they are teaching the kids in the school systems, the medical establishment, the economic establishment. One crazy Twilight Zone reality seems to be looming over us. In the special part, which is divided into 3 principal sections, I shall describe its execution. These 3 sections are the Jewish company, local groups, and the Society of Jews. The society is to be created first, the company last. But in this exposition, the reverse order is preferable because the financial soundness of the enterprise, which will chiefly be called into question, and doubts on this score must be removed first. Well, let's not forget, this was 1896, this book, and 1913, so 18 years earlier, he wrote this book when they took over the USA money supply in 1913. And apparently, between 1850 to 1900, they did not have control of the USA money supply. They did prior to that, but the United States government revoked their corporations, their charters. A couple presidents in between 1850 and 1900 were assassinated. There were a couple other assassinated attempts that failed. A lot of politicians were speaking about these things. Even Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s wanted the United States to print its own money. He was assassinated. And then, of course, in the 1960s, after World War II, President John Kennedy said in his famous speech, "The secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose them." He was assassinated. And leaders all over the world, there have been many assassinations, and 9/11, and so much more. We've all watched it in the news, probably wondering what's going on. What's behind all of this? Is there a religious component to it? Mysticism? Should we be asking these questions? 2 more small paragraphs. In the conclusion, I shall try to meet every further objection that could possibly be made. My Jewish readers will, I hope, follow me patiently to the end. Well, if he were alive today, I'm saying me, Rick Miracle, is going to read this book patiently to the end. I read this book in its entirety years ago before I was making videos. I can tell that I did because it's all yellowed and let me show you what I mean, that I know that I read this. You see all the little stickers on the end here, these blue things, purple things? But there's no highlighting. So before I started highlighting, I just put stickers on the pages where the information alarmed me. I thought was quite interesting, but I wasn't highlighting. Later on, I put stickers and I highlight, and I even underline in red stuff that I think is even more crazier important. In the conclusion, I shall try to meet every further objection that could possibly be made. My Jewish readers will, I hope, follow me patiently to the end. Some will naturally make their objections in the order of succession, other than the chosen for their refutation. But whoever finds his doubts dispelled should give allegiance to the cause. So he's having a rallying call with this book in 1896. The Jewish Congress existed for hundreds of years trying to attain this goal. It says in this book even that they have been longing for the return to Jerusalem for 2,000 years. And who do you suppose was behind having the Jews homeless for 2,000 years? I am certain that no human hand could have been involved. It had to be the hand of God. Like it says in the book of Jeremiah, the Old Testament, when the Lord spoke to Jeremiah, and the king of Babylon sent him down to Jerusalem to destroy the second temple, kill people, and take the rest as prisoners because they were worshiping Moloch and Baal and Baalim, sacrificing their men and women, children. Their sons and daughters is how it says. Although I speak of reason, I am fully aware that reason alone will not suffice. Old prisoners do not willingly leave their cells. We shall see whether the youth whom we need are in our command. So that always they use the youth. Even the youth in the United States today, in Europe, they're more influential. They don't know what's really going on. The youth who irresistibly draw on the old carry them forward with strong arms and transform rational motives into enthusiasm. So here I am reading the book, seeing the plans for creating the Jewish state, 1896, all the way back to 1700. And even in this book it says they've been yearning for this for 2,000 years, and it's part of the biblical story. And the Sanhedrin, the religious leaders having Jesus Christ crucified, and the Sanhedrin recently asking President Donald Trump and President Putin to help rebuild King Solomon's temple, and asking our government to start enforcing the Noahide laws, making it illegal to talk about the Jews or Zionism and all these plans into this mysticism. And I know, as much as I continue to say and show this material, there are people who just are not going to get it. And, it's kind of frustrating when you see the installation of advanced technology, weaponized surveillance system being installed and used all over the world, targeted individuals. You can go look on YouTube and look up TIs, people who are being targeted. And of course, plenty of evidence. A lot of people have been imprisoned or killed or harassed or career losses. And a lot of people are bought and paid for, traitors to America and to Christianity. So you got the six-pointed star. So I thought I'd look in the Encyclopedia Judaica, published in Israel in 1973. 16 of these big, thick books, encyclopedias. If you get the edition published in Israel, this would be the Keter edition. The Macmillan edition, Macmillan, was published in New York. So anyways, they have a topic here involving the six-pointed star to further our education. Six-pointed star, six-pointed star. Here's a throne with lions and a six-pointed star, called the Magen David. So I read that in this book. You can see here. So I thought I'd read a little bit of it, try to further our education. What are we dealing with these people who want to destroy Christianity and are trying to tell us that Jesus Christ was a myth? They're still in denial. So what do you believe? Synagogue of Satan? The Joy of Satanism, that website.com, joyofsatanism.com, Joy of Satan, and all the symbols. They have our people dressing up and looking like freaks with all kinds of weird tattoos and statues of the devil and so much more. All right, page 687, Magen David in the Encyclopedia Judaica. It says here, the shield of David. The hexagram, or the six-pointed star, formed by two equilateral triangles, which have the same center, are placed in opposite directions. You've seen that in my pictures. From as early as the Bronze Age, it was used, possibly as an ornament or possibly as a magical sign. And I have to remind people, when I read a book like this, I have to remember who wrote it, published in Israel. They sugarcoat material. They don't give us the entire truth. Of course, they're not going to put it in print. But it does say possibly as a magical sign. Do you believe in magic? Or would you rather prefer to believe in Palladians and Zetas and gray aliens and reptilians and the Galactic Federation and all those beings that the channelers are channeling? Jane Roberts and Barbara Marciniak and Nancy Leader on Zeta Talk. A lot of crazy stuff out there. What are we to believe? From as early as the Bronze Age, it was used, possibly as a magical sign. In many civilizations and in regions as far apart as Mesopotamia and Britain, Iron Age examples are known from India and from the Iberian Peninsula prior to the Roman conquest. Occasionally, it appears on Jewish artifacts such as lamps and seals, but without having any special or recognizable significance. And there's plenty of evidence to show in these Encyclopedia Judaica that that's just nonsense. The oldest undisputed example is on the seal from the 17th century before Christ, found in Sidon and belonging to one Joshua B. Asahu. In the Second Temple period, the hexagram is often used by Jews and non-Jews alike, alongside the pentagrams, the five-pointed star, hexagram versus the pentagram. And in the Synagogue of Capernaum, 2nd and 3rd century CE before Christ, it is found side by side with the pentagram and the swastika on a frieze. So that would be some kind of woodcut or drawing. There is no reason to assume that it was used for any other purposes than decoration. Do you believe that? Theories interpreting it as a planetary sign as Saturn, connecting it with the holy stone in the pre-Divinic sanctuary in Jerusalem. So why would they really want to rebuild King Solomon's temple and getting the United States and Russia to do it? Why would they be calling on the U.S. government to enforce the secret Noahide laws they passed in secret? Why are they trying to destroy Christianity? Neither in the magical papyri nor in the older sources of Jewish magic, it says Jewish magic here, do you believe in magic? Does the hexagram appear, but it began to figure in the magical sign from the early Middle Ages? Well, I've been showing plenty of places in magic where they have the hexagram. The hexagram apparently is a representation of Saturn, because if you look at the North Pole, it looks like a hexagram, six-pointed shape. Among Jewish emblems from Hellenistic times, both hexagram and pentagrams are missing. So I'm going to skip over to this other place where I highlighted under Megan David. In Arab sources, the hexagram, along with other geometria ornaments, were widely used under the designation the Seal of Solomon, a term which was also taken over by many Jewish groups. The name connects the hexagram with the early Christian, probably Judeo-Christian magic. Judeo-Christian magic. What do you think of that? I think Judaism and Christianity are opposites. Polarized. Remember, it was the Sanhedrin of the Jewish people who had the Jesus crucified. So they keep bringing out this term, Judeo-Christian magic. And I think Jesus was opposed to magic divination. But people don't want to use their thinking caps, use their brains, and see this stuff for what it is. Not all completely honest here. It is not clear in which period the hexagram was engraved on the seal or ring of Solomon, mentioned in the Talmud, as the sign of his dominion over the demons. That's what it says here, instead of the name of God which originally appeared. So it clearly says here in the Encyclopedia Judaica, sign, the last sentence in that highlighted area. So the demons and King Solomon's control over the demons with the six-pointed star. So where did I go wrong here? Have I discovered something? Something I didn't know. I just got another book in the mail today. I keep ordering books. But it talks about the secret history of Freemasonry. Now remember, I've been studying this for years, so I can tell when something's not quite right and honest. But anyways, it does share some interesting information. There's a Freemasonic symbol. This design from the 17th century France is a possible prefigurement of the Royal Arch degree. Royal Arch. Didn't they try to put the Archway of Baal in New York and London? And finally, through UNESCO, the Education and Science Department of the United Nations, I found out they were putting 1,000 archways of Baal, the devil. There's a six-pointed symbol there. I don't want to call it a star. I call it a five-pointed symbol, the star. But I guess this could be some kind of shape of star. But anyways, the Royal Arch, and then the bottom here is another one with the six-pointed star called Jehovah, and another apparently Masonic symbol, Masonic, and it's the Great Magic Circle of Agrippa. The Great Magic Circle, you can read this highlighted yellow spot. The Great Magic Circle of Agrippa is based on the six-pointed star, which also appears on Masonic badges. So then you got the Freemasonic symbol here with the all-seeing eye, like on the back of the dollar bill. And here you have a six-pointed symbol, the alternate version of the Royal Arch Jewel of Office used on the six-pointed star. So a symbol for Moloch or Baal on the Masonic medallions or badges. You suppose we might have a problem here? So looking at some more of these pictures for the Merkabah on Yahoo image site that you can go look up. So what do you suppose this stuff means? What do you suppose it means? Yahoo Images Merkabah. Yahoo Images Merkabah. The spheres. The Kabbalah Tree of Life. Kabbalah. The historic, I guess, theology, philosophy, religion of the Jews. Might be a problem here. Even on some of the buildings with the statues of the men, that's the man's feet you see on the statue, you see the Tree of Life. Some kind of version of a Merkabah, you think? Merkabah mysticism. Apocalypse. Why is this under Merkabah on Yahoo Images? Maybe there's something we ought to know. Beings coming down from heaven. Modern Talmudic magic and culture. Magic and culture, it says on this book. Merkabah, mysticism, invocation, initiated interpretation of Harry Potter and more. So, do you wonder about Harry Potter and magic and Merkabah and mysticism and Judaism and anti-Christianityism? Maybe we have a problem here, Houston? Understanding Jewish mysticism. Is there a reason why the Jews have been having problems with other people, like the book I'm going over says, with the other people for 2,000 years? Is there a reason why God dispersed them from Jerusalem for 2,000 years? Before that, having the king of Babylon come down and destroy them on the King Solomon's second temple for hundreds of years, and before that they were dispersed after worshiping Moloch when Moses was guiding them out of Egypt. So does God punish people worshiping the serpent, Moloch, Baal, Baal, Baalim, and all these other names? Yoga, meditation, New Age, awakening. See the bottom of the card? Awakening. Statues throughout history, the serpent wrapped around the guy. Apparently the astrology symbols all around this statue. There's Scorpio, Pisces, the fishes, the man with the serpent wrapped around him. Maybe there's something we should pay attention to. The great angel, the study of Israel's second God, Marguerite Barker. Maybe I should get this book and read it. The great angel, the study of Israel's second God. Is that a fallen angel? Raphael, apparently represented by the six-pointed star. All right. Let's remember this document here. When Prime Minister of Israel, Sharon, was having a big heated argument in his Congress over there in Israel, he had an outburst. They were telling him, we got to stop doing what we're doing. The Americans are going to get mad at us and stop giving us all that free money and military control that we're using to take over the world. And what did he say? We Jews control America. This is the Prime Minister of Israel. I want to tell you something very clear. He says very clear there. Don't worry about American pressure on Israel. We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it. October 3rd, 2001. Now think about that date. 9/11 was 22 days earlier. And apparently, according to Webster Tarpley, 9/11 Synthetic Terror, and many other books, Israelis, Mossad, intelligence services, and the intelligence services here in America, they control our intelligence services and our government and our banking system. They control America. They've been orchestrating everything, and this guy is telling us. And shortly after that, he went into a coma. Guess they didn't want to have him explain everything. There's pages and pages and pages of comments here. One of them says, Christian Zionist will be lapping up the announcement of Sharon's demise. They believe in a false prophecy from Rabbi Zarkuk Kudori that the Jewish Messiah will rise in Israel shortly after Sharon dies, and his name will be Jesus. If this is made to pass, it might succeed in deceiving many Christians, Muslims, and Jews into accepting the New World Order. Just one of the many comments I've got here, 20 pages of it. January 11, 2014 comment. So I got so much here to read. I just got this book in the mail today. Went down to the mailbox, and The Invisible Crime: Illegal Microchip Implants and Microwave Technology in Their Use Against Humanity. I have to read this and make a video. When was this book published? (2011). I'm curious about the date. Just says copyright 2011. So 10 years after 9/11. The Invisible Crime. Microchipping we the people. Things I keep talking about. And who's doing it? What's the plan? The global world order. What's the symbols? Who's involved? CIA, Mossad. They control our government leaders, the banking system. They're installing all kinds of advanced technologies to probably depopulate the planet and police and control the slaves after that, bringing us into this new golden age. Golden for them, but not so golden for the dead people and the slaves. Just saying. So it seems. So I got about 10 more minutes on this video. So I think I'll start chapter 2. Chapter 2, Theodor Herzl, The Jewish Question. No one can deny the gravity of the situation of the Jews. 1896 this book was written. Before World War I, World War II. Wherever they live in perceptible numbers, they are more or less persecuted. This is way before my time. I didn't hate the Jews or anybody. I'm sure most of us don't, and don't know any of this material. All these preparations for a global world order. Their equality before the law, granted by statute, has become practically a dead letter. They are debarred from filling even moderately high positions, either in the army or in any public or private capacity. And attempts are made to thrust them out of business also. Don't buy from Jews. I guess he's quoting what non-Jews would say. And I have to make a point. Percentage-wise, in my opinion, and I don't think any Jewish person can argue with me, but percentage-wise, let's say the Jewish population makes up, let's give them the benefit of the doubt here and say 2% of the population. So if you take 10% of that 2%, that's quite a bit of the Jewish population. But let's just say 5% of that 2% of the world population are probably in high positions of power in governments and bankings. A good percentage, probably 10, 15, 20%, if the truth were told. So there was a greater percentage of these Jews in higher positions of business and government and banking and brokering than the other 98% of the population. The amount of those people that are in these positions was minuscule when you consider the volume of people. So percentage-wise, the Jews were in better positions more often, percentage-wise, per person, per group of people. But if any of them were not in those positions, it was an outrage. That all of them felt it was beneath them to be in the menial labor peasant positions as all of the masses out there. They felt they were separate, as we already know. In a lot of the books I've gone over, they deem that they have a higher IQ. They're more responsible for medical successes, inventions, and mechanical, and philosophy, and book writings, and all these things, that they have outdone the rest of us per percentage, because apparently they believe, and it says it in this book I'm going over, that they have a greater average of intellects than the rest of us, which according to my research is not the case. If they did have a greater intellect than the rest of us, why were they always in trouble wherever they went? I mean, who asks people when they move into your neighborhood or your town, do you walk up to the person and go, hey, are you Protestant or Baptist or Jewish or Christian or atheist? Most of us don't care. But then again, we're not trying to bring about some kind of religion with a great angel, a study of Israel's second God, and all these symbols. And it says here, no one can deny the gravity of the situation. Attacks in parliament, in assemblies, in the press, in the pulpit, in the streets, on journeys, for example. Their exclusion from certain hotels, even in places of recreation, became daily more numerous. And granted, some of it falls on them. They did dress differently. They did not want to associate with people. They had those black outfits with those long beards, all of them looking like magicians or something, with their different kinds of rituals, apparently into this mysticism, which a lot of people, part of the Kabbalah back then, a lot of them were accused of sorcery, which I equate with witchcraft. So could that have had something to do with it? And apparently, in many cases, the straw that broke the camel's back, why they were exiled from an entire country, like Britain, like Italy, like Spain, like France, was because of the sacrifices. They would find these young little boy bodies with pinholes all over them, a telltale sign of draining all the blood and using it in sacrificial rituals. Bohemian Grove, the big statue of Moloch that threw a baby in the fire. And many people on YouTube are saying, even Jordan Maxwell speaking with Jeff Rentz the other day on a video I was watching, Jeff Rentz says to him, you don't really think that they're sacrificing children around here, do you? And I guess that's in Washington. I'm not Washington, but Los Angeles area, California area. And Jordan Maxwell says in that video, yeah, they're doing it all the time in the mountains around us. And so much more evidence. So, according even with President candidate Hillary Clinton, with Pizzagate and all this other stuff about children and pedophilia, and according to Aleister Crowley and sexual magic and all this other symbols of Satanism, if you had to ask me, I'd say the stuff is going on with all the symbolism they show us. There is this satanic religion. And even in the book of Revelations, last book in the Bible, 2.9, 3.9, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. So do Satanisms, people who are into Satanism, I guess you could call them witches, do they abduct people and sacrifice people? And there are videos on YouTube you can watch about that. One ex-witch says that in one community they were driving around in a white van looking for somebody to just pull over and abduct them into the van, take them to one of these secret places, tie them down to an altar, and ask them to pledge allegiance to Lucifer. And if they didn't, they sacrificed them. I mean, think about it. There's even a website on the internet, The Joy of Satan. Do these people take their religion of Satanism seriously? Do they put statues in Oklahoma and Detroit and all these other symbols at tunnel openings in Switzerland? Eurovision, like American Idol in Europe, 2014. All the symbolism. American Idol, the All-Seeing Eyes, Super Bowl halftime show recently. Many videos talk about this stuff. You get books like this coming in the mail every day, The Invisible Crime. All these people writing these books, are they all lying? Is there illegal microchipping implants and microwave technology and their use against humanity? Is it going on according to this book? I know one lady who says she's chipped and she goes to the doctor and he can x-ray it and see it. And he say he wouldn't even dare touch it. The powers that be scared him. doctors. Even a friend of mine who was a pilot, I said, when we were in Florida and we would ride our motorcycles, and I said, look at this dumping of stuff in the sky spraying. And one day in the garage when we were having a beer after our bike ride, my friend screamed at me, Rick, you need to stop looking into this. You're going to get yourself in trouble. An airline pilot flies for a #1 airlines. He knew. So back to this book and closing this video. Attacks in Parliament, in assemblies, in the press, in the pulpit, in the streets, on the journeys, for example, their exclusion from certain hotels, even in places of recreation, become daily more numerous. The plight of the Jews back in 1896, in this book, The Jewish State, the plans. They had serious plans. Jewish Congress that controlled Britain by then, controlled France by then with 2 revolutions, executing the King of Britain, the King of France, purging lots of people, involving the Freemasons, Illuminati, and revolutionary Jewish people, according to Nestor Webster in her book, The World Revolution, published in 1921. And the only book review that YouTube has deleted from my channel and gave me 1 strike. And any other book reviews I make on Zionism and similar topics get restricted, where people have to acknowledge some kind of agreement before they can watch it, and then they can't leave comments or give it thumbs up. So some reason they're on the threshold, maybe. I hope they don't take my channel down, but I don't think they want this information out there. The forms of persecution varying according to the countries and the social circles in which they occur. 1896, this book. 120-something years ago, before World War I, World War II. They were busy. Russian Revolution, or I should say invasion. In the next 10 to 20 years, they murdered 100 million people in Russia. Christians destroying the churches. Bringing communism to countries all over the world. Lots of destruction going on, Central America, South America, Africa, all over the world. And now it's coming home, here to America, happening in Europe. The EU, European Union, something they orchestrated and planned in secret, taking away the sovereignty and self-government of all those countries. All planned, executed. Where do you think it's going to end? So it says here, the forms of persecution varying accordingly to countries and social circles in which they occur. In Russia, imposts are levied on Jewish villages. In Romania, a few persons are put to death. In Germany, they get a good beating. Occasionally in Austria, anti-Semites exercise terrorism over all public life. Do you think there's a day of revenge coming against the rest of us, if they believe what's in this book? In Algeria, they are traveling agitators. In Paris, the Jews are shut out of the so-called best social circles, excluded from clubs. Shades of anti-Jewish feelings are innumerable. But this is not to be an attempt to make out a doleful category of Jewish hardships. The book with the 6-pointed star. The star that King Solomon had on his ring, on his hand, that he can control demons. As it says here in the Encyclopedia Judaica, and all these pictures I've been showing. So what are we to think? Even people who talk on TV have little pictures of the owls on their clothes. Why do you think the person took this picture and posted it? Johnny Manzulli on leaving Manny Academy. The owl, Moloch. Even in Jeremiah, it says they were worshiping Moloch. And the Lord told Jeremiah that he had told the king of Babylon to go down and destroy the second temple and kill off a lot of the Hebrews and take the rest into captivity. So over and over this has happened. So where do you think this is going to lead us as a world if this continues the way that it looks like it's continuing. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Merico reporting.